Welcome back, my dear friends. This video will be a general step-by-step guide to our upgraded seat saddle design. We have applied the design to two previous motorized bicycle builds, correcting the design flaws along the way. We assume that most of us possess a basic knowledge and skill set with power tools and hand tools, so we can avoid getting bogged down in any detailed process by just mentioning the particular tool we used to skin the cat, as it were. We will split this video into three different sections: the bones, the flesh, and the skin. We will perform a test ride after the bones and before the flesh as a proof of concept. We will conclude this video with a final ride of our completed project, coupled with an analysis of the ride comfort and performance. And so it begins. Alright, we begin by removing the existing saddle and seat post from the seat tube. Easy enough. Next, we cut the top of the seat tube flush with the top tube. Now, to accomplish this, we can either use a grinder or a bandsaw. Along the top tube, just ahead of the seat tube by an inch or two, we will drill a hole right in the center of the top tube. Now, the diameter of this hole must be wide enough to accommodate the U-bolt that comes with our motorized bike kits. Once we fish the U-bolt through the hole, we will take a measurement from tip to tip. We used calipers here, but we could just as easily have used a tape measure. Now, we will take this measurement and transfer it to a door hinge. Drill the holes. We used a drill press and vise, but we could have used the existing holes to secure it to a tree or perhaps a table, and then just drill the holes with a cordless. And alright, next we will secure the hinge to the frame using the corresponding nuts, washers, and lock washers, which are also conveniently provided by the motorized bicycle kit. We will grind the excess U-bolt threads. We could have used a portable bandsaw here, but we used a grinder. Well, my friends, we are making excellent progress. Next, proceeding to our salvage pile, which any serious builder will certainly have, we will locate a set of front forks by removing them from the head tube and front wheel, of course. Now, most cog sets have existing threaded holes, which are not being used. We will choose a pair of these existing holes and widen them using our cordless drill bit and cordless. This is in order to accommodate a more robust bolt to secure the front forks to the cog set. Now then, returning to our salvage pile, we will select a suitable length of 2x4. In this particular case, we found some 1x4 and simply reinforced it with some scrap pile metal stripping. Easy peasy. The exact length will vary depending on the angle of the front forks and the location of the hinge. This particular board measured a little over 20 inches long. We use our drill press to drill a hole on one end of our board in order to accommodate the tube that originally ran inside of the head tube. In this case, we just opened the hole straight out the back, then nailed a scrap piece of the same board to secure the top of the front forks in place. A couple more short scrap pieces of this board, cut at 45-degree angle, will give us a suitable platform for the front horn of our seat saddle, so that we don't slide off the front. Neither one of the previous designs had this front horn, but I suspect that it will provide a level of added comfort to our design. Only one way to find out, gentlemen, so let us attach everything in place using wood glue and clamps, or an 18-gauge brad nailer, or both, for added security. We will drill some pilot holes and use screws to attach our platform for our saddle to the top tube hinge location. And there we have it, gentlemen. This concludes the bones section of our video. Let us proceed to the test ride portion of this video, my favorite. in order to prove the structural integrity of our build. For fun. Honestly, my friends, I can't decide which I enjoy more, building them or writing them. If you are creative, the designing is fun. Constrain yourself to your own salvage piles, and then you get a double bonus of fiscal responsibility and added challenge. Okay, let's check the odometer on the Midnight Rider. 166 miles so far, so she is yet a baby. Compared to one of my early builds, that's over 1,500 miles, gentlemen, and it runs like a champ. Open throttle to the other side of town and back, piece of cake, no problem. And this is one of the old China doll engines, mind you. I've been putting the YD100 on the current fleet, and I love the way the engine sounds, even idling. Anyhow, I normally run the YD100 with an MZ65 style fat belly pipe, 34 or 36 teeth on my sprockets, and that's because I'm a city rider, and that's just conducive to my riding style. Well, gentlemen, I believe that we now have our proof of concept, at least in the short term. Let's move on to the next phase, the flesh. Oh, and so it begins. My dear friends, welcome to our second phase where we will add padding for comfort. Now, originally, I had intended to follow our first two designs more closely. However, after rummaging through our ever-resourceful salvage pile, we came across this long-forgotten remnant of a bygone project. With only the slightest of convincing using our chisel, we found this piece to fit quite nicely onto our platform. Normally we prefer a sleeker look, but we can achieve an attractive look nonetheless. So, after attaching it with the provided hardware to our platform, we proceed to pad the front horn by using our most recent inspiration, the unregarded pool noodle. 3 lengths for $20 on Amazon. Ah, SOGGY, you genius. A couple slices later, with our 25-cent retractable blade from Harbor Freight, and we have the lion's share of flesh for our horn, held in place by a piece of the material we used for our previous seat saddles. We simply cut the shape we needed, stretched it over the pool noodle, then attached it using our widecrown pneumatic air stapler, powered by this gray beauty. Easy peasy. Next we cut a piece of faux leather, stretch it over the horn, similar to the last step, and nail it in place using the same tools. I suppose that we could have used some sort of adhesive here and achieved similar results. In any case, this concludes the fleshy portion of our project. On to the skin, gentlemen, on to the skin. And so it begins, our skin phase, the beautification. Our objective in this phase is to improve the aesthetics to the maximum. Make it look good. Allow me to lay out the 5 main steps. First, we will fabricate a pair of identical wooden pieces to cover either side of this location. Second, we will add a couple wooden pieces we salvaged from an obsolete saddle design. Next, we will add a chain guard to either side of this location. Afterwards comes the bondo, sanding, and painting. And last of all, we will add chrome stripping. Well, gentlemen, there we have it, our marching orders. Let us proceed. We begin by making a template out of cardboard that will serve to cover this area of the front saddle horn. Once we are pleased with the looks and fit, we simply trace our design onto some thin single ply and cut out 2 copies using the jigsaw. To make certain that the pieces are identical, we press them together and clean up the edges on our belt and disc sander. Yard sale special. A quick double coat of flat black exterior paint, and 2 minutes later, wow, so nice. Okay, crank up the compressor, whisper quiet, plug in the 18 gauge brad nailer, and we have made short work of this step. Onto the wooden side pieces. Now, these wooden pieces came off of an old design. With only one spring, it made for a rough ride indeed. But we look good, gentlemen, so let us repurpose them with slight modifications. Using the oh so gentle persuasions of our chisel and hammer, we can then mount them to our saddle platform. These notches allow us to clear the hardware we use to install the seat saddle. Well, for the sake of structural integrity, my friends, I say we add a scrap piece of 1/4 inch right about here. It will also give us a wider mounting location target. Our cordless driver, with a few 1.5 inch self-drilling construction screws, should do the trick. Now then, let us pre-drill some holes right into our wooden side pieces. We can also countersink them using a step drill bit, like so. Well, we use our driver to drive the screws, and we can continue on to the chain guard additions. Originally, we tossed around some ideas about where these should go, but ultimately, gentlemen, this spot here just made sense. Not only does it improve the aerodynamics, but it also makes our project resemble something of a black praying mantis. We simply pre-drilled some tiny holes, drove in a couple of sheet metal screws. Yep, always buy this kind of stuff when it's on sale and not when you need it. Okay, one tiny addition to the front, and it is time for some Bondo. Then some sanding, Bondo, and sanding. We whip out our trusty can of flat black, brush on 2 coats, and sim sim a la bim. Now, we do have the necessary equipment to shoot some proper black car paint, but we found it faster and easier to do it this way. Once we put 2 coats of lacquer on, it's difficult to tell the difference. Perhaps once we put some significant miles on the odometer, we can more accurately gauge the difference between these 2 processes. In any case, we move on, gentlemen and scholars, on to the chrome stripping. Well, my dear friends, we are certainly coming into the home stretch, and we don't want to blow it now. A distinct possibility. You see, there's a fine line between classy and gaudy. We will have to restrain ourselves with the chrome stripping, is what I'm trying to say. So let us plan on simply adding a strip to cover the point where faux leather meets wood, and perhaps a strip on the tank. We will mix up some JB Weld to secure our stripping. Now, gentlemen, before we continue on to our final ride, we should take a moment to mention here an unexpected problem we encountered during this particular build. The front forks we used were a bit thick in the bottom. Normally not a problem, huh, fellas?
Soggy.
Well, you can imagine the problems this might have caused us in the future. As it is, we had to clean out this entire compartment, including the bearings and the bucking bar. Metal dust and filings had caked into the grease and caused a real mess. Thankfully, we caught the problem early, cleaned it out, and re-greased. As to the culprit, we simply squeezed it in a vise, then hammered the spot flat, pow, for good measure. And that was the last we heard of that problem. Now, on to the final ride. Oh, choicest of friends. Little mariachi band? Si, senor. Epic music, my tiny musicians. Si, senor. In truth, my friends, I do not know whether the added shock absorption we added to the seat saddle alone explains the increased comfort of this design. I actually suspect that the wood is also a factor in absorbing the vibrations caused by these beloved little engines. I believe that wood and metal complement each other and lend to a final result which we find is extremely pleasant. There is an increase of area that our body rests on, which distributes the impact of contact, coupled with the floating sense we get when we travel over rough terrain. As a means of extreme testing, we open up the throttle at one end of this street, and by the time we reach this dip, our velocity is substantial. We've got to risk it to get the biscuit, right? Well, the sensation is much like a springboard which lacks any sort of jarring contact, even at the extreme point of its arc. The springback is also minimized greatly due to the hydraulic shocks, I suspect. Increasing the height of the handlebars allows us to straighten our backs as we ride. Bicycles are designed with pedaling strength and mechanics in mind, which works against motorized bicycle riding. In conclusion, this is Soggy's recommendation. To his dearest of friends and fellow rascals, rustle up a pair of front forks from your salvage pile, I know you have one, and attach it to your rear axle. Hinge in the front, spring in the back. Come on, my boys, quit riding all hunched over, sadistically punishing that backside. Rest those paws on some ape hangers, and ride easy, bros. Now, until the next video, may the God of Heaven, through His Son Jesus Christ, bless you and keep you. This is Soggy, and I'm out. Ay, 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 ay!